So, I know you're all far away. Some of you with really good eyes that are maybe close, what's this? Say it really loud if you can tell what it is. It's an acorn, right? And what is an acorn actually? It's a seed. It's an oak seed, right? We define this object not by what it is right now, but what it has the potential to become, right? This is the seed of an oak tree, right? So this topic, the brain and how it's wired. The way that our brain is wired determines how we perceive our world, right? It determines whether when we have an interaction together and I have a whole set of stories, the things that you say, they go through this filter that is produced by the wiring that in my own mind that I bring to the table. So maybe I have a close experience, or maybe I might get my feelings hurt. A whole variety of things can happen in any interaction, right? Determined by how our brain is wired. And the wiring in our individual, unique brain comes from what's happened to us in the past, the things that we have experienced, and it also comes from how we have responded to those experiences. So science has known this for a long time, and that's the job of the little infant baby, to kind of like move around, and they're doing all of this seemingly senseless kind of motions and stuff. And what they're actually doing is discovering that this hand is my hand, that this is somehow connected to me. And then they're establishing through this seemingly random movement the circuitry and the patterning to actually connect with and deliberately be able to control this thing, which we now take for granted, that we can move these things at will, right? So it's been understood for some length of time that that's what happens all the way through childhood. But until kind of recently, it was decided that the patterning and the pathways in the brain, once we reach adulthood, they're pretty much fixed. That our kind of emotional template, our emotional style is pretty much determined. Are there any parents in the room? Are there any children of parents in the room? Yeah. Now, that kind of puts an awful lot of pressure on the things that happen between the ages of, 0 and 18, doesn't it? Doesn't it? It puts a lot of pressure. It's like, okay. So one of the most exciting ideas, and it's called neuroplasticity, this quality of the brain to respond. Stuff happens to us. We change. The wiring and the circuitry in the brain changes in response to the events that happen to us. And then most exciting, in addition, they're finding the patterning and the circuitry in the brain changes in response to what we think. So wow, so what if we want to learn to be happy? What if we want to cultivate states of inner peace and happiness and connectedness? What if we want to do that? Then perhaps we can do that. We've been trying for a long time to do that by manipulating the world outside, right? Getting our partner to act a certain way, getting ourselves to look a certain way, getting the traffic lights to kind of, work out in our favor. We've been trying to do that. Sometimes it's somewhat successful, a lot of the times not so much. But here's the deal. We can change the patterning, we can change the circuitry in our mind through the way that we think. And if we change this patterning in our mind, that actually changes our perception of the world. We can increase qualities like gratitude, like a feeling of connectedness, the feeling of being cared for. So let's look to the east for a moment then. We were talking about what kind of optimal thinking produces happiness and well-being, right? So let's look to the east, because this has been their extreme focus for well beyond 2,500 years, but I'm just going to talk about something that began about 2,500 years ago, which is called Buddhism. And so Buddhism is where we draw these thing we call mindfulness, and all these practice goes back to this root called Buddhism. And so we talked about this, right? This oak seed, this thing in my hand, which is very small, and we define it according to what it has the potential to be. Right? This is the seed of an oak tree, and this, if planted and nourished in the ground properly, can grow into a 2,000, how many, I don't know, into a giant, radiant, magnificent tree, right? This little thing right here can grow into that. So looking to the East, at the very basis of the tradition that brings us the mindfulness practices, when we ask the question, who am I? You ask that question to you. Who are you as a human being? Who are you? Well, can you see this? What's this? If you're close up, say it loud. It's a Buddha. You're a Buddha seed. This is defined by what it has the potential to become. The human being is defined by what they have the potential to become. So Buddha, put your hand on your heart, please. Buddha means awake, that's all. Awake and radiantly happy. Like having tapped into this inner wellspring of deep happiness and empathy and connection and closeness with others, having tapped into this deep wellspring of wisdom, of an understanding of how things work, of clarity. The human being is a seed for awakening, is that which can, if properly nourished, wake up to this quality of life, to this way of being, right? Open and free in the world, right? So this tradition then, in the Buddhist tradition, in Tibetan, the word for meditation means to familiarize, to habituate our mind, to grow new pathways, to learn a new way of thinking. There's this whole body of practices called Lojong. Lo is mind, Jong is training, literally training the mind. And that's what our scientists are discovering today. If we want to be happy, fine, train the mind to be happy, right? It's just so exquisite. So let's talk for a minute. There's a lot of different practices. Let's talk for a minute about mindfulness as it relates to trauma. Viktor Frankl was a psychiatrist in Nazi internment camps during World War II. He says this: between stimulus and response, there's a space. In that space lies our power to choose our response. And in that choice lies our growth and our freedom. So this is a scenario, okay? You're 2 years old. You're running along, you're playing, you fall down, you smash your face, you're all bloody, you're afraid, you're hurting, you're crying. At the same time, your mother is running out the door late for work. She can't be late for work anymore. She sees you there, sends you a kiss, nods to the caregiver whose care she has left you in, and runs away, right? What's your 2-year-old experience at this point? Yeah, I'm afraid. I'm broken. I'm in pain. I'm totally consumed with fear, and I am expressing that. I'm crying. I'm reaching out to the person who is supposed to take care of me, and I'm letting them know I need you. I'm calling out to my mother, I need you. And what does she do? She runs away. Yeah? How might that get lodged inside of the memories of this 2-year-old child? Your pain is unimportant. The way that you express your needs, you expressing your needs has no effect. In fact, maybe even you're not even worthy. You're not worthy of being cared for. You're not worthy of receiving love and attention when you're hurt, right? Anything like that. Let's fast forward now. Fast forward 45 years. I've had a hard day. For you young ones, you won't know what this is. But doing this sounds funny, right? for you older ones, I've had a hard day, so this is a phone and like old people. I've had a hard day. Hi, honey. Can we go for a walk when you get home today? Dear, I'm really swamped right now. I don't think I can swing that. Okay, fine. Click. You don't get the satisfaction of hanging up anymore, right? Okay, fine, click. That was a scenario that might happen to in one variety or another, right? Let's unpack that for a minute, right? Viktor Frankl, between stimulus and response, there is a space. Well, in that scenario, there wasn't much of a space, was there? right? Stimulus had to do with husband saying, I can't walk with you today. Response, fine, click. Shut down, close off, anger, click, So let's unpack that. What just happened? What are the elements of the stimulus in that? There was the words of my husband, my partner, I can't walk with you today. The other part of that was this whole backstory. Right when I heard that, it triggered this thing. It triggered, put one hand on your belly, please, and please put one hand on your heart. Close your eyes. And feel like a time. Just feel this fundamental fear of being left alone, of being abandoned. This place inside that says, I'm not okay. I'm not worthy. I'm not okay unless I perform properly, unless I do the right thing. And then feel the gripping in your belly that comes with that, the twisting in your heart. Maybe there's this kind of hollowness in the center of your chest, like you've just been kicked in the lungs and can't breathe. Maybe every atom of your being starts to desperately trigger you to run and hide. Maybe your mind says something like, see, I told you, no one can love you because you're not lovable. Now, all of that happens in a split second, right? All of that gets triggered in just a split second because it's part of my emotional alert database. Big word, doesn't matter. It's back in there. It's back in there stored, right? It just gets triggered in an immediate. The sense of incredible fear of rejection, of loss. This incredible sense of I am not okay. That's all part of the stimuli, and that's going to come. These unpleasant emotions like sadness and loneliness and fear, these are going to come. And as Zach said earlier, our objective is not to squash them down or deny them. Those are going to come, right? That's part of the stimulus, experiencing these feelings. Now, in that first scenario, when I say, fine, click down the phone, or maybe I say, see, you don't love me, and it starts this whole row, however it goes. That response, there was very little space in there. Why? Because I was suddenly hit by this overwhelming sense of fear of being left alone, of incredible sense of I am not okay, I am not worthy of love. And those are just simply the most uncomfortable emotions we can imagine. So rather than staying in that, it clicks immediately into a secondary reaction of anger. You don't love me enough, right? Or the internalized version, fine, click. Same thing, same reaction. It immediately goes into that. So mindfulness practice is a practice of learning to stay. It's learning to stay with what is coming up. It's learning to just put one hand on the belly, one hand on the heart, and learning to stay with what is arising. Recognizing it, oh, this is fear. Oh, this is that sense of just utter agonizing despair. Just allowing it to be. And allowing it to be with love. The way if that 2-year-old tumbled down in front of you and was crying, you would run out and you would hold that 2-year-old in your arms and you would rock them to soothe them back and forth, and you would tell them it's okay. It's going to be okay. And then maybe once the intensity and the desperation has kind of softened a little bit, maybe investigate a little. Maybe ask yourself, what is this? What's happening here? All my husband said was, I don't think I have time today. So what's this activating for me? And then can come this piece of non-identification. Cameron just said it. This feeling of unworthiness, this is a part of me, but it doesn't define who I am. There's a whole circle of us standing, that are my qualities and my attributes. And this feeling of I am unlovable, that's standing in the circle, and that needs space. and it needs to be listened to, and it needs to be loved, but it doesn't define me. And then maybe, this is a practice called RAIN. Recognize, allow, investigate, non-identification. And then maybe with this kind of response over and over again, with this kind of practice of learning to stay in the uncomfortable place, maybe a new response will become available. Husband says, I can't walk today. Maybe we can get centered, I can get centered and I can say, here, honey, I'm really hurting. I need some support. Can you make time? And in doing that, in finding the space between stimulus and response, there is a space. Step one, finding the space. Mindfulness helps us find the space. In that space lies our power to choose our response. Choosing to say, honey, I need some support. That's a new response. That is actually taking a new pathway in the brain, right? This well-worn pathway that's so easy to go down. It's deciding to bush bash and go off-road in the Amazonian jungle and kind of like fend your way through a new pathway. So it's really hard at first, but it's laying down a new circuitry so that the next time this same thing is triggered, there's a better chance that I'm going to have the option to tap into what I'm feeling, honor it, acknowledge it, create the space, and I'm going to have the power to choose my response. This new response, which cultivates connection with the people that I love rather than distance, right? And in the response lies our growth and our freedom. So that's the practice of mindfulness, and how it can be a powerful intervention to these arising, deeply uncomfortable feelings that we instinctively and intuitively just run from, just like that. And I think it's an invitation as well to remember, like, this is just metal. So and it's an image of a being that you might not relate to at all. But just to remember that inside here, there's this seed, this potential. And please never give up. Never give up on yourself, and never give up on any other human being. Thank you so much.